Hi, morning everybody. Welcome to the Digital Tech Cumbria webinar, our final one, this one on social media. Just to say that all our previous ones are recorded and on our website. So if you've got any that you want to catch up on, please just log into our website and you can, they generally last about an hour to an hour and a half maximum. And Liam is our presenter today, so I'll hand over to Liam. I'll always be in the background and I can take any questions and I listen in hard. Hand over to you, Liam.
Lovely, thank you. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's session. We've got a lot to get through today because we've got social media tools thrown in at the end. As always with this one, if you've got any questions, you could either unmute yourself and interrupt me and ask your question, or you can use the chat facility and chuck your question in there. I've got the chat facility on a second screen over here, so hopefully I'll get to spot it as we're going through. But as I say, if you want to unmute yourself and ask a question, feel free to do that as well. Right, without further ado, so this is the, well, these are what we're going to cover reasonably briefly today, just because we can't deep dive into everything. We've done the deep dive into the main ones in the previous sessions, and so these are kind of the more of the outliers at the moment, but for some they may still be fairly important social media channels to consider. And then we'll talk about some social media tools at the end, because it is almost impossible to do social media without some kind of help, whether that be visual help or imaging help or video help or scheduling help. So we're going to kind of cover all those up for you and just give you some good tools to have a look at that might be, and it's not to look at every tool, but it's just to give you alternatives as we go through. So first up, we have Pinterest. Pinterest essentially was created in the main because I think the guy was called Silberman, can't remember his first name, Peter Silberman, maybe, possibly. Anyway, he decided to create Pinterest because what he was seeing at the time with social media, and it is still the case now, is the way that nearly every other social media channel works. You have kind of content in front of you, and then that content disappears quite quickly. And that content is very difficult to go and find again. So if you imagine you're posting every day onto Facebook, then whatever you post today in half a year's time is at least 180 posts down your page, and nobody is ever going to go scrolling down 180 posts worth of content to be able to find that particular post. So when we're producing content on social media, it generally is it's generally short-lived because of the fact that everything is kind of chronologically being pushed down, and the new stuff is getting the most importance. Occasionally algorithms will play about with that, but it still will only be within the last few days. It's not going to show you something that's like 2 months old. So you produce all this content and then you essentially lose most of it because it just gets buried under more and more content that you're producing. So Pinterest turned around and said, well, actually, we don't like that. We don't like the fact that some of your best content may just get kind of swallowed up and disappeared in people's minds. So we want to create something visual, number one. So Pinterest is very visual, and number two, can be easy to find. And what I would say kind of off the bat with Pinterest is some of your social media content will have a much longer lifespan on this particular channel. I have had many times where stuff that we've put up there literally years and years ago is rediscovered by somebody else. They will comment on it, they will repin that, and which is essentially resharing that, and that will then get another lease of life. So it's a very good platform for longevity of your content on there. Pinterest itself is just a series. So you have an account. You can have a business account or a personal account. There's not a massive amount of difference between the two. You can have a personal account and upgrade that to a Pinterest account, again with a little bit of code that you put onto your website to prove that the website that you're going to reference is yours. But beyond that, there's not a massive amount of difference between those two things. I think they give you a bit more analytical information if you upgrade yours to a business account at that point. So this is my news feed. So what we're looking at now is essentially my news feed, which you can choose how you want this to, and this is on a desktop, so you can choose how you want this to show up. So you can choose the number of columns visible, what we would class as above the fold. So here I've chosen the 7-column option. I think there's 5 columns and 3 columns that you can go for. But what should be immediately obvious is just how much content I can see on my screen at the same time. So if we're on Facebook, this is just one post. If we're on Instagram, this is just one post, although we're probably going to be on Instagram on a mobile device. On Twitter, it would just be one post. On LinkedIn, it would just be one post. And I would have to be scrolling down to see each individual post. Here, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So we've got 14 posts immediately visible within my newsfeed. And this newsfeed will be curated from people that I follow, and then some of it will be curated from Pinterest, thinking you might be interested in this thing, and then there'll be some adverts in there as well. So very visual and quite easy to find the content that's going to kind of catch your eye. On the content creation side, you can now see that it is critical that you produce good quality visual content. And if you can't produce good quality visual content, then Pinterest is probably not worthwhile doing. And the reason for that is you need to stand out. You are up against all of this content, and therefore you need something that captures people's attention, and it then gets them to click through to that individual pin. As a business, you create what are called pin boards. If you think about pin boards like mood boards, so you could create a mood board. Are any of you in? Do any of you do any kind of? Are you? Is there any holiday cottages or anything like that on here at all today? No. So, as an example, then I'll just use that. But if I was a holiday cottage, I would be all over Pinterest, and I would have pin boards about things to do in the area that my holiday cottage was. And that would be of great value to people who came to my holiday cottage, and vice versa. It would get my holiday cottage discovered by people who were looking to come and stay in Cumbria, because there would be lots of things. There might be a pin board about dog-friendly places to visit in Cumbria. You might have walks in Cumbria. You might have activities in Cumbria. So you're creating a pin board that's going to be useful to individual people, but actually on the back of that, people will discover your business at that point. So if you think about mood boards, you're thinking about creating something around some kind of theme, is the best way I can put that. So for somebody like Brendan, this could be the different styles of stone that you're doing. So it might be, and I don't know, I'm guessing, Brendan, so you might have a pin board of worktops, you might have a pin board of driveway decorations, you might have a pin board of something else. So essentially you're putting your creations into specific collections to make it easy for people to be able to discover those, rather than just chuck random stuff out there and then people have got to scroll through everything to discover things over time. So in terms of what's popular on Pinterest, I'll come back to that one in a second. I'll come back to that one in a second. So in terms of what's popular, DIY is popular, gifting is popular, fitness is popular, things like just household stuff is very popular, jewelry is very popular, fashion is very popular, activities and children's stuff is very popular. So you do tend to find the roughly about 70% of the overall users on Pinterest are female. So if your audience is potentially female, then that's not the worst place to start. And people tend to go to Pinterest with an intention to buy something, not from Pinterest, but to discover ideas about what they might want to buy. And therefore, they would go to Pinterest and they would do the search. The search function is amazing. I'll come on to that one in a second. And then they're just going to try and discover what's going on at that point. And what was interesting, there was I think, I don't know if you call it a department store, and I might be kind of doing them down, calling them a department store, but I think there is a company in America called Nordstrom, and what they were doing is they were putting their products on Pinterest, and whichever of their products were getting repinned, so reshared the most, they then had a section within their department store. So the real life department store, they would have a section called Pinterest curated fashion, and whatever the users were kind of engaging with and finding the most interesting, they were using that feedback in order to then put that into the real world, because it was real people pinning things, and they're not pinning things just for a laugh. They're often doing it because they want to save your stuff. So when we go back to this here, let's say I liked the flower bouquets, flower arrangements delivered. I might click into that one, and then I might pin that to my own mood board. So maybe I'm getting married and I'm having a look around to try and get some ideas around wedding dresses and florists and cars and venues, and Pinterest is the perfect place for me to be able to curate all of that information in one place to then be able to go back and revisit that. So as a business, we want to put out content that people are going to find useful. It's going to drive traffic through to our website. As an individual, they will often use it to shop. They will use it for ideas. There's a lot of teachers on Pinterest because they will create lesson plans on the back of stuff that they find on Pinterest. So if you're trying to reach teachers, then Pinterest can be a good way, provided you are producing the content that they are going to find useful to be able to then do things like lesson planning at that point. In terms of the search is probably, beyond Google, this is probably the best way to search for ideas and products across the entire internet. This would work far better than an Instagram search or a Facebook search or a Twitter search, mostly because it's very visual and therefore it's easy to see what the thing is. But number two, just the search functionality is really, really strong on Pinterest, and it's something that they wanted to get right from the off. And often if you did a search, as you can see, I've searched for things like bridal dresses and wedding dresses, because you tend to find people in that industry are very good at creating content because they know how visually appealing that content needs to be. But when we do that particular search, what's going to happen is that's going to bring up some ideas. So in this instance, I've just done a search for golfing quotes, and we can see all of these different golfing quotes from lots of different places. We don't really know at this point who this is from. I would have to click into these to find out who this was from. And then if I go through to a physical account that's about golf, this is a really clever idea. So essentially, this is a website run by Women's Golf, and the visuals are very different to what you would see on the website, but the visuals would drive you through to their website. So they've essentially gone with a style. So they've gone with a golfer showing on the actual clip. They've gone with the text over the top, and then they've gone with the golfer that's actually in the shot in the yellow. So they've gone with a specific style, and if you clicked into that pin, it would just be a bigger version of that pin. But the most important part is there would be a click through to the website, which is where the content behind this will then sit. So for Women's Golf, this would drive a lot of traffic through to their website, and the chances are it will be a lot of good traffic, because I'm not going to go click through for a laugh because there's no point. It will be people that were genuinely interested at that point. So when we're dealing with e-commerce websites, we tend to find, if we look at the traffic that is driven through to the website from social media, Facebook often drives the most traffic, followed by Instagram, and that's mainly down to size, just because they are monstrously bigger than everybody else. But the actual quality traffic, the traffic that converts into actual sales, comes from Pinterest. And almost every single e-commerce channel we use has the same success on Pinterest. They tend to find that they get less traffic just because it's a smaller membership, but they get good quality traffic that comes through and physically buys the items that they're seeing on the platform itself. Okay, so that is Pinterest done. So if you want to drive traffic to your website, if you're e-commerce, you should be all over it. If you are trying to target people within those popular industries, you should be all over it. If you're none of the above, then have a look at it. Have a play about with it as a person first, and get used to kind of what it looks and how what it looks like and how it does at that point. Next up, we've got YouTube. So YouTube is the it's the largest video content what do you want to say, network on the internet. It's owned by Google. It's actually the second largest search engine in the world as well, because people often will go to YouTube and search for stuff, and then because of the size of YouTube, then that's actually more than people would do on something like Microsoft Bing in this country. So YouTube's a bit of a different one, and from a business point of view, it's one of those where you've got to decide whether you've got the time to commit to do this, or whether if you're just going to host videos on YouTube, then it's never going to work for you at all, because that isn't what the user base is looking for. And the type of content that tends to do better on YouTube, especially from a business point of view, is either tutorials or how to do something style of content. If you try to sell on YouTube other than doing YouTube ads, it's never going to work, because and again, it's back to pretty much all social media, but the user isn't going there to buy. Pinterest is the only one where the user is possibly going there with an intention to buy. On YouTube, they are definitely not going there to buy anything at all. So if all our videos is trying to sell something, people will watch them from about 3 seconds and then they'll move on. One thing that YouTube has, so just going back a step, on YouTube, you can create again, an individual YouTube channel, or you can create a business YouTube channel. There is literally zero difference between those two things other than what you call them. So they have exactly the same functionality as each other. I think YouTube, unless you're going to commit to do regular content, I think it's a really tough ask for businesses to do YouTube, just because you are up against other people that are producing regular content. So there are enormous numbers of people that produce daily or bi-daily pieces of content, and ultimately YouTube is trying to show the most popular content to people. So if you go to other than if somebody goes there and does a search on a feed. Now YouTube introduced YouTube Shorts, which has actually made it slightly easier for businesses to potentially get involved, because YouTube Shorts are short form videos. So this is kind of YouTube's answer to TikTok, where you've got short form video that can be easily created from a mobile device. You can have a play about with things like adding music to it and other bits and pieces, but it's really there just to kind of grab attention more than anything else. And I think if I was a gym, then I'd be all over YouTube. I would have tutorials, I would have YouTube Shorts, I'd have loads of really helpful, useful content that was trying to then also raise awareness for the gym. And actually that probably wouldn't be too hard to do, because some of it could just be kind of taking videos of classes that we were running or whatever it would be, or exercises we were doing at that particular time. So again, going back to should you do it, should you not do it? It depends on whether you've got the time to be able to put into this one. You have to have some level of video editing skills, which pretty much rules me out, because you have to go through, even if you recorded an hour-long video, you're going to have to go back and chop and change that around to make it interesting. Otherwise, people are just going to get bored. You also got the ability to be able to create chapters in any of your long-form content that you may produce. And so when you're putting a longer video together, you should have this in mind when you're storyboarding your kind of content. So when you're thinking about, we're going to talk about this for the next 20 minutes, you need to think about breaking that down into what could be then chapters, because then people would be able to find and discover things that were more relevant to them. And that gives you a better opportunity of those videos being found over time when somebody does a search on YouTube. So that's YouTube done. Next up, we've got WhatsApp. So WhatsApp, very much kind of a messaging platform. So again, owned by Facebook, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you want to look at it. WhatsApp really is the I want to say it's the European alternative to Messenger. Now I know everybody uses Messenger, and I know lots of people use WhatsApp, and it kind of feels a bit weird to have both Messenger and WhatsApp on your phone, but hey, here we are with that kind of thing. And that again is because Messenger initially started off in the US, became very popular, and is very popular as a messaging tool. WhatsApp came out in Europe, became very popular, and now we've got this weird kind of mix where half of us have got Messenger and WhatsApp kind of on our phones. In terms of what you can do on WhatsApp, you can have a business account on WhatsApp. You can create groups on WhatsApp. So again, we talked about Facebook groups, and we talked about Facebook a few weeks ago. So having a bunch of people within a group is very, very powerful, provided you don't just keep spamming the group with sales stuff, but as things like using this as a customer service style group. So adding people in there that might be customers that can then ask you questions, putting helpful information into that group. The great thing about things like WhatsApp and Messenger as another one is that often when people add things to the content, it gets pinged through to the phone that it's going to be sitting on. You can access WhatsApp through the web as well, but most and majority of people are going to be using it through a mobile device at that point. Now, a couple of things just to be cautious of. WhatsApp is going to start charging business customers for some of the services that they're offering. So we'll see what those charges look like. We don't know what they look like yet, but if people are starting to use them, then just be aware that it might start to cost money in order to use some of those features. They've introduced disappearing messages. So again, this is really them trying to compete with things like Snapchat. So why would you do a disappearing message as a business? Maybe you want to run a promotion that you only want it to last for a certain length of time, and if you've missed it within that certain length of time, it then disappears and never comes back again. So that's a good way to tap into people's fear of missing out. So people wondering kind of, or every time you're posting, especially if they've seen something or they've heard that something has gone, a special offer has gone or a special deal has gone, then maybe they'll keep an eye out for your messages coming through on a more regular basis. Now, something that all social channels are trying to crack at the moment, and they're getting better at it, although I've said that about 500 times over the last 10 years, all of them want to get to a point whereby you can physically buy on the platform and not have to leave the platform. So at the moment, e-commerce on all of social media is pretty much still driving traffic to an e-commerce website to be able to buy the product. And every single social media channel wants to solve that problem by allowing people to be able to not only search on their mobile devices or desktops, but also to be able to buy. So having a cart within the app, and then being able to pay for that cart and that order information going through to the business, etc. So they've been trying a long time to crack this, and at the moment they're getting closer. So WhatsApp are going to be introducing the WhatsApp cart for shopping. Facebook are trying to introduce it so that you can buy on Facebook. Instagram are trying to do it. Twitter are trying to do it. Pinterest are trying to do it. Even Google are trying to do it. So there is a move by Google so that you can have a shopping cart on Google and be able to buy products and not leave Google in order to buy those products. You would then, so you're essentially buying from potentially multiple different organizations or businesses. And that model is what Amazon are, really. So one of the reasons all of these platforms are moving towards that. On social media point of view, so many people use social media all the time. It is by far the biggest online activity we now all do. So trying to get people to then buy through your channel as well makes a load of sense. What they want it to be able to be, that rather than just buying from one person, they want people to be able to buy from multiple people and actually shop on those particular channels. And that's because they've all looked at Amazon, who have a monopoly really on shopping. They are massive compared to things like Google and people going to Google to look for shopping. Amazon monstrously outperform Google for people buying stuff because they've made it easy. They've made it easier for to open up an app on your phone, press what you want, swipe a finger, and then you've ordered it. So all of them trying to do that, including WhatsApp. Next up, we've got TikTok. So TikTok, you would class this as probably entertainment media. So TikTok is amazing for getting people's attention, for raising awareness. It seems to have very good engagement metrics, so you tend to find people are liking and commenting more on this particular channel than some of the other channels. And at the moment, compared to all of the problems we've had with algorithms on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, there seems to be good reward for creating content, in that you appear to get good organic reach from your content. The hard side is producing content in the first place that is going to work on this particular platform. At the moment, user details are people spend an average of 52 minutes per day. This is skewed towards, the younger end of the audience. So you're probably looking at the majority of people being under 25 down to whatever the age limit is to be able to join TikTok. I would imagine it'll be around about 13 or 14. Over 1 million 15-second videos are watched every day, and people they've got to do, they're not just going to sit there for 52 minutes solid each day, but people return multiple times per day to the platform, mostly because a lot of the content on there is genuinely amazingly good content, in that it's often, you'll often find once you start interacting with the content that you like, you will start to see more of that content. So the algorithm seems to be very good at giving you content that you're going to enjoy over time. In terms of accounts, again, you can join as an individual or you can join as a business. If you don't have TikTok right now, and if you've never looked at TikTok, I would suggest that you have an individual account first and just play about with it. Just see what it's all about, how it all works. It's a very, very creative platform. So the way that you can record and edit videos within the platform is almost unsurpassed versus everybody else. The only people that get even close to this is Instagram. So the ability to be able to create content on the platform without having a degree in creativity actually makes it very appealing to people. However, I would suggest that you have a look at what other people are doing, have a look at businesses in your kind of in your industry, see what they're doing, do searches around businesses within your industry, see what kind of content they're producing, and have a look down this right-hand column. So in this particular video that we're looking at now, the picture on the right-hand side is the person who has created that one, called Born Uncreative. If I click on that button, then I will go through to that person's profile. If I click on the plus button, I will follow that particular person. So that is how you gain new followers. The heart is how many people have liked that particular one, this particular video. And the speech marks is how many people have commented on this particular video. And then we've got a share button at the bottom. Almost all content that's produced on TikTok, you should add a music track that goes with the content that you've produced. And part of the reason so much music is readily available is this used to be called Musical.ly. So music, what was it? Musical.ly was the previous incarnation of TikTok. So music plays a massive part on the platform. The music is available for anybody to be able to use because you're using it on the platform. What you couldn't do is do a TikTok video and then somehow download that video and use it somewhere else without it being kind of registered to TikTok, because the rights to the music will only be available on this particular platform. In terms of content that works, generally you tend to find it falls into one of these 4 categories. Copycat content. So when we talk about copycat content, we're talking about something where somebody does something and then everybody else does a version of that. And was it last year or the year before? My brain can't. I think it was probably the year before, because it was probably the very first, at the end of the very first lockdown. But you probably all saw the shanty, the sea shanty song that suddenly became massive on the news, and then it became a massive hit in the charts, and that all came from a TikTok video. That all came from people taking one person's idea and then adding their own version to that one. So one thing that you can do on TikTok is you can take an originator's video and then you can then put your own content alongside that video as well. Other content that works, educational video works really, really well. And I'm following some amazing channels that have, they won't position it as educational. They'll turn around and say websites that nerds don't want you to know about, and then there'll be a website where you can get lots of free things from Adobe that nobody knew existed. So they're just informational, they're educational, but they're worthwhile following because of the content that comes through from those particular channels. 15-second clips. So it is absolutely about short form video. So you want to try and keep it short. The videos themselves can be up to 60 seconds long, but you tend to find the 15-second clips do something. And then finally, live streaming, as always, on the channels. Live streaming is good, provided it's interesting. If it's done as dishwater, live streaming isn't going to work for you. And then finally, the video length, so it can go from 7 seconds up to 60 seconds. That should say 15, not 5. So 7 to 15 seconds is the most watched videos on TikTok, and therefore they would be the ones that you may originally start with. For me, I would say that, and this is the way that because I've seen lots of videos on TikTok. I've seen lots of people saying, oh, TikTok is the next big thing. And at the moment, the stats appear to be saying, I think it's already about the 3rd largest social network in a fairly short period of time. Instagram have tried to copy it by bringing in Reels. So they've brought in something to try and stem that kind of growth of TikTok. But at the moment doesn't seem to have made a dent in their growth. And it is one of those channels whereby when you first look at it, you think to yourself, as a business, there's just no point. I can't see any reason for me to do this one. And then the more you watch it and the more you come across business videos, by the way, some of which is cringeworthy beyond belief. So please try to avoid cringeworthy stuff. But some of the other stuff you come across is really clever. And therefore, it's about trying to think about how could I then incorporate that into my business. I've seen some businesses have no people on them, and they'll just use the editing features to be able to then tell a story with text and the graphics that you can upload as part of your TikTok channel at that point. So it's not always about people. It's not always about you talking into the content. It's up to you to kind of then find what's going to work for you. But I would say go on TikTok, create an account, and just start to look and see what comes through as you're watching it. Okay, so that is TikTok. Next up, we have Snapchat. So Snapchat continues to grow. It's been around for longer than TikTok, but for less time than something like Pinterest. The user base is still relatively young. I would say it's not as young as TikTok, but it's because the users that were there are all getting a little bit older. It's a bit of a weird one from a business point of view. And the reason for that is the reason Snapchat exists is because, again, the guy that created this one, he was reasonably young, I think, and he was looking at the footprint that all of the, well, everybody, not just the youngsters, but everybody was making on social media. So if you were on Facebook from the start and Twitter from the start and all these other places, you have a massive digital footprint that if you don't go back and delete that content is pretty much there forever. And we've seen many, many stories where people have got into a position of in the public where people can suddenly recognize them, and then people have gone back through their Facebook account or they've gone back through their Twitter account and they've pulled up a random tweet that person made 10 years ago, and suddenly before you know it, these people are losing jobs and they're being called out for X, Y, and Z. So Snapchat came along and said, look, all these youngsters particularly who aren't really they don't have the life experience yet. I mean, hopefully as slightly older people, we would have some sense in what we're going to put onto social media. I've always gone down the fact of if you're not willing to put it on a billboard outside your front door, don't put it onto social media. Therefore, we maybe have a bit of a filter to say we're going to say this or we're going to say that, whereas some of the youngsters just use it without really thinking about any kind of long-term implications of social media, of what it could have further down the line. So Snapchat came out and said, look, we want to solve this. We want to give people the ability to be able to express themselves and share anything that they're wanting to share, but we want this to be limited viewership, i.e. we want this to disappear after a particular amount of time. So when Snapchat first came out, you could do a post that after 10 seconds, it would disappear, and it would never, the person that had watched that would never be able to watch that again. So there was no way of being able to tap back into that. Now it's changed slightly because you can now do snaps that allow you to have what's called an unlimited snap, which means it will stay there. The reason they brought out unlimited snaps was because one of the problems Snapchat has always had is if you go to Snapchat as a new person and you can't find your friends on there, then there wasn't very much for you to be able to get involved with, because there's no news, there's no feed, there's no home feed to be able to tap into. Now there is a news feed section, but that is from news outlets. It's where you would just find news stuff rather than stuff from people that were just members. I keep calling people members, I can't think of the word, but people that users on that particular channel. So it was always difficult to go on Snapchat and not just find your friends, and then really you're having kind of private conversations with your friends at that point. They've tried to increase that over time. Again, if your market is a younger market, then Snapchat should be You should be having a think about how you might be able to use this one. If I was, for example, if I was anything to do with the university, you would absolutely have probably multiple Snapchat accounts for different parts of the university. So I might have the university bar, I might have the university kind of hiring section, whatever. And all of those would be trying to communicate with what I would imagine would be a very interested and engaged populace of that particular place. As a business, it's one of those where some people use it purely from a customer service point of view. So they just use it because of the private kind of messaging system. They will use it to be able to do the private messaging on there as well. So again, it's one of those, it's for, if your market is young, then again, you want to join it, get your head around how it works. If your market isn't young, then it's probably not something you're going to kind of go galloping across a field to join at that point. Now, something that came out, again, it feels like it wasn't long ago, but it probably was. But I don't know if anybody heard of something called Clubhouse. And Clubhouse was the ability to have essentially an online audio chat that people could join in with, and they could either just sit and listen, or they could try and ask questions. So you'd be able to have essentially you had what were called rooms, and then you could invite people to that room. You may have one or two speakers who were talking about whatever it was, and then everybody else sat there listening, or they would ask questions. So a little bit like what we've got today, but without any visuals, and pretty easy to access, because people would go and join these Clubhouse rooms, and they'd be just working, but it'd almost be like a podcast, but a podcast that had multiple people in and people asking questions at the same time. So again, if your content lends itself to something where you feel an audio chat would be quite useful, then it's worthwhile having a play about with and trying that out. It's not necessarily time consuming, but obviously you're gonna have to prepare something. You can't just have an audio chat and just sit there and go, right, what we're going to talk about today. Everything it's almost like an audio presentation that people listen in on and then ask questions about. So if you go to Twitter have created something called Twitter Spaces, which is pretty much their version of Clubhouse. And Facebook, I think, have also brought in some kind of audio chat. If something comes out that's new, you know that Facebook are going to copy it. And I'm fairly certain that Facebook have got some kind of audio chat feature now within Facebook itself. So I've listened to a couple of these randomly. So when they show up, they do show up at the top of Twitter. So they're very Twitter's version, Twitter Spaces. They have good visibility because there's not many of them at the moment. The downside is when I've clicked through to listen to them, I've lasted about 10 seconds before I've got bored and I've come back out again. So obviously the quality of whatever the chat is that you're joining is the key between keeping people's attention and raising awareness. And this is what this is about. This is about trying to raise awareness in your business, maybe in yourself, and then over time, those people will start to follow you on other social channels because they're getting value from the content that you're producing. Now, the last time I checked with Clubhouse was only available on Apple devices. So that means that Twitter Spaces has already stolen a march on them, because Twitter Spaces is available on any device, doesn't matter. So we'll see what happens with Clubhouse. I would be surprised if they survived, because I think that they will be just, it's been a great idea, but I think it will be copied easily. And I think people will probably go to those ones rather than do this. I don't know. Sometimes these things last, sometimes they don't. I've got plenty of screenshots of amazingly new ideas that then either got bought out or fell by the wayside because somebody else brought something else. I think Meerkat was probably the most famous. That was the first live streaming app that came out long before live streaming had been thought about by anybody else. It was amazing for about 18 months, and then Facebook brought out Facebook Live. Everybody else brought out their live versions, and Meerkat literally disappeared because there was no need for it anymore. I kind of feel that that could happen with Clubhouse. Okay, so that is a whistle-stop tour of the alternative social media networks. I think they're all worthwhile checking out. What you have to balance, and I think I heard Brendan say it earlier, what you have got to balance is how busy you are. So you don't want to spread yourself too thinly and have a presence on every single channel and try to populate every single channel, because chances are there'll be channels that work far better than others. Having said that, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to go and get your business name on Snapchat if it's still available, your business name on TikTok if it's still available, because it just protects you against other people pretending to be your business on those particular channels. And you don't know how those channels will pivot. So sometimes you look at a channel and think that's not really for us, and then before you know it, they've changed completely direction that they were heading, and now it becomes somewhere that you need to be. And if you haven't grabbed your username that matches your business, you're then having to create different usernames across different social channels, and that's never a good kind of branding idea at that point. So we come on to different tools for you to be able to use. The first, well, it's not really, well, it is a tool, I suppose, but the first thing that I know a lot of people struggle with is just content ideas. What content can we produce as a business that people are going to find useful? And for me, the best place you could all start is somewhere called Answer the Public. So on Answer the Public, you get to search twice a day. And in fact, let me just see if I can show you this one, because I think it's worthwhile looking at. Just bear with me a sec. I think, is it that screen? Can you see my Zoom screen at the moment? Does that work? Yeah, I'm getting nods. That's good. Okay, so if I go to Answer the Public. Okay, so in this example, if I did a search for, let's have a think. So if I did a search for, I don't know, let's say I was a physiotherapist. So I'm going to search for knee pain. And what this now does is this goes and grabs all of the popular questions that it can find on Google for things around knee pain. So we've got, what have we got? Who helps? So you've got the who side, who helps with knee pain, who can prevent knee pain, how to explain knee pain, why it occurs at night, why it occurs after a hip replacement, why you get it after running, how can it occur in a young age, why does it happen when you're bending, why does it happen when you're climbing stairs, why does it happen in winter. Then we can go across to the what side of things, we can go to the when side of things. So we've suddenly got lots of questions. And the reason this is a good place to think about content ideas is if I go to social media as a physiotherapist and I start creating content about why your knee hurts after hip replacements, or why your knee hurts after running, or why your knee hurts after bending, each of those could be an individual post where you give a clear and simple answer. And suddenly you have an audience that could be interested because you're finding things that people are physically asking online, in this instance about knee pain. As we then go down, we get the prepositions. So we get knee, so we've got knee pain near the kneecap, near the tibia, near the fibula, near the calf, near the quad, near the quadriceps tendon, near the inner thigh. So clearly not knee pain from just one place, and you may use that as content to go and explain why that might happen. By explaining why that might happen, you are positioning yourself as an expert in that arena, and people that want help with knee pain are more likely to come to you because you've helped them out by sharing good quality content with those people. So there's lots more there. You can see knee pain for 2 years, for a year, 2 weeks, a week, 3 months, 3 weeks, for no reason, for months, so on and so forth. And then finally, or not finally, we've got two more things. We get comparisons: knee pain versus swelling, knee pain and popping, knee pain and stiffness, knee pain versus arthritis. And then as we go down, we get alphabeticalized searches around knee pain. So you apply this to whatever your industry is. You could put in a keyword like knee pain, and then you could see what are the questions people are asking about this, and how can I then produce content to answer those questions. Because if these questions exist, or if these searches exist on Google, we then know people are looking for the answers. So the best thing we can do is produce those answers on our social media channels at that point. So it's a really easy way to come up with content ideas, rather than sitting there every morning thinking, what am I going to post about today? The other place to look for ideas is Google Trends. Google Trends is pretty good, especially if you're trying to see what's popular in your industry. You can put in your industry and just do a search and then see what related searches are going on with that one. Google Trends is also good at kind of using for storytelling. So you can show people the trend line of people being interested in something and then not being interested in something. So again, I'll just show you a demonstration on this one, because I think otherwise it doesn't make any sense. So if I go to Google Trends, okay, and if I I'll one that I know, because I'm going to go for fidget spinner. If anybody remembers fidget spinners, so I'm going to go for fidget spinner as a search term. I'm going to take this back over 2004, and there you go. If you ever wanted to see a trend line of when fidget spinners were at their most popular, it was May 2017. They were quite short-lived, so it looks like they lasted from about April 2017 through to about July 2017. And whilst people still search for them, it's not in the volume that they did at that point. So very much a fad at the time, very popular, monstrously popular, but then pretty much have fallen off of a cliff. So this could be, if you were trying to tell a story about fads or something like that, this could be a great way of doing that. If I wanted to see how popular the fidget spinner was versus something like the Rubik's Cube, again, let's say I could do those two things. And again, the Rubik's Cube has always been there, but in terms of search volume, so this is a scale. So this isn't 100 people searching versus one person searching. This is a scale of everybody searching for these two particular items. And the fidget spinner at the time was 100 times more popular than the Rubik's Cube at the time it became very popular, and has been. So I don't know how that would stack up in sales, but you get the idea. So you can add lots of comparisons in here, and it can be useful for storytelling, and it can be useful for seeing trends. If I scroll down this page, I get some other ideas around related queries. Not really the most useful in the world. It's just about people looking to buy these. I suppose if I was a toy owner, I could have fidget spinner tricks. That could give me some ideas to put out on social media back in 2017. Probably not so much now. What else have we got? Metal, gold, rainbow, cube, how to make, and the rest of it looks as if it's buying from other people. So great to go and have it. You're not going to spend days on there, but it's worthwhile doing a search around your industry, around your products and services, and just seeing what comes up in Google Trends that may suddenly light up that light bulb of ideas in your mind. And then the final place that we can go, and actually this is really what Answer the Public is doing, but you can also use Google's suggested search. So if you start to type in something that is related to your business, then Google will do these suggested searches for you. And this might give you an idea as to A, what is a very popular search within your industry, and B, how can I produce content around that particular search term. So even though we're on Google and we're talking about creating content on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and all these other places, it still all interconnects. People still looking for this stuff will still be thinking about that stuff when they go onto Facebook or when they go onto Twitter or wherever else that might be. So that's your content, that is your creation ideas. Next one we've got is images. So where do we go and find good quality images? It's hard to produce your own images over and over and over and over and over and over again. So where can we go and find good quality images? Well, the first place that we can go, excuse me, is Pablo. So this is called Pablo by Buffer. It has over 600,000 images that you can use, and it's free to use. You don't have to pay to do this one. And what this allows you to do is it allows you to put text over the top of images in a really simplified manner. So we are going to talk about some other channels that are far more they're far more complicated or complex than this one. They allow you to do a lot more. This one is the absolute basic. So this is essentially here's an image. Sorry, I'm just going to have to cough really violently, so I'm just going to mute myself. Right, that's better. Yeah, I think I'm back on. So it allows you to put text on top. So one thing I really love this for is use this to, if you get positive feedback, if you get testimonials, if you get cards from clients and thank yous, use this as a shortened down version of that thank you. And as the picture, have your product in the background or do something along those lines. And the text that you add in, you've got a header text down here, which would put 2 lines of text up here. You've got the body text, which would put it in the middle. And then you've got a caption text, which would be down at the bottom. And what you could do is you could have, forget about the headline, unless you wanted to say recent testimonial. Then the body is parts of that testimony. You don't have to write War and Peace about that one. And at the bottom, that could say Liam from Lincoln or something like that. And what that allows you to do is then you've created that content, and we've got a Pinterest image size. So if I clicked on the Pinterest image size, it would change the size of the image that we're looking at in the middle of the screen. We've got Instagram size, which is square. So that would change that to square. So you'd be able to have a play around with the wording so it fits properly. And then we've got Facebook, Twitter, and pretty much LinkedIn as well. So we'd be able to do that size and have a play about with there. And suddenly one piece of feedback can become 5 bits of content for social media, number one. And this is the kind of content that I would use as what I would class as evergreen content. So when we talk about evergreen content, we're talking about content we reuse. And if you have great feedback, then put that out once a month. No one's going to remember that from a month ago. People can't remember what happened 2 days ago on social media, so they're not going to remember a month ago you putting that out. The only platform you wouldn't do that on is Pinterest, because on Pinterest it would live forever, really, so you don't want to be kind of repeating that. But on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, all of the others, don't be afraid to kind of shout out, and this becomes about, remember that kind of awareness, interest, and consideration. When people see positive feedback, that helps them to get towards that consideration stage, because they're now starting to trust somebody who up to that point they haven't spoken to. All they've done is seen content that you've produced on social media at that point. You can upload your own images, or you can use any of their 600,000 images that you want to go and have a search through. The search function is pretty good. If you use the little search icon and then search for the thing that you want to represent behind, then that's easy to do. And not only for testimonials, this could use for any content where you just need some kind of image in the background that's going to capture people's attention. Next up, so this is where, so that one is by far the easiest one to use. Pablo by Buffer is what it's called. This next one is called Easel. So one thing that Easel has is it has some amazing ready-made templates. So when we talk about ready-made templates, we're talking about graphics and fonts and designs that are already there. And often all you need to do is replace the words with the word that you wanted to use. And this can be a really eye-catching way of quickly being able to create content without, again, needing a degree in graphic design or whatever it might be. So there are thousands of templates here that you're able to use. Find something that works with the message you're trying to get across, and then just replace the words that are relevant to you versus what are on the actual thing itself. But the design and everything else can stay the same if you're happy with it at that point. Picmonkey also do this. So actually Picmonkey used to be my favorite until Canva came out, but it's still very popular. Again, it still has a lot of templates for you to be able to go and use. And again, the point of these templates is that everything is already there for you. So often all you're having to change is the wording. If the images don't work for you, then you can upload your own images. But the transitions that are already inbuilt into that template, if you're doing things like stories, are already there. You don't have to think about them. Somebody else has created that. Well, Picmonkey have created that for you. Made with Over. So this is probably, if anybody is interested in doing stories, this is probably the easiest one and the most eye-catching one to do when you're looking to create stories. So Facebook stories, Instagram stories, etc. This is a really easy way to get some good templates in place before you even start. Crello, which has been bought by Vista, I think it's called Vista Creative now. So Crello, again, you can see all of the different types of posts. So you would choose the different type of post you wanted to use. You could then choose a template to go with that post. Again, all the design work is taken out of your hands. All you're having to do is change the wording on those designs. And then Canva that I mentioned before, probably the one that most people have now come across, and that's because it does such a good job. The only thing I would say about Canva is it can take a little bit of time to get used to using, and there is Canva and Canva Pro. So there is a lot of stuff you can do for free with Canva, and a lot of the other stuff that I've shown you have free versions. Sometimes it might only be a free trial. Certainly Easel has got a free version, but anytime you've got a free version, there'll always be things that you can't do. So you'll get less options to use some of the photos that are already on the platform. Maybe some of the designs that are available won't be available on the free version of Canva. There'll be some free versions, but there'll be some that you have to pay for. But I think Canva's amazing. I think if you really want to take it seriously, you can then set up branding controls. So every time you're using it, the brand settings are already there. So this is an example of, again, an Instagram story. So where we've got the ribbon that says women, 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 and some sparkly stuff. The sparkly stuff will be animated. The women being added will be animated. When we click play, there will be other ones that use. And what you can do is you can change those bits. So you can use the template that's going on, but you can choose the wording that's around those templates. So this story would start off with women, 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 then it would go across to this girl can, then it would go across to empowered women, empowered women, then it would go unite for women. So it would be a full story at that point. Canva Pro allows you, so you have to pay for this one, but one of the real benefits of Canva Pro is the ability to be able to produce multiple versions of your creation across all of the channels at the click of a button. So if you haven't got Canva Pro, you've got to go into the Facebook template, do your image, do your text over the top, then you've got to save that, go into your Twitter template, and now do that again, then go into your LinkedIn template and do that again, then go into Instagram and do that again. And obviously that's not going to work all the time. Whereas you could just use Canva Pro and that's going to resize all of these. Now, when it resizes, it might not always be perfect. You might still have to play about with it, but it means the bones of the post are automatically there, which makes it much easier to be able to play about with. I think the key part here is you get a couple of things that are amazing. You get a monstrous amount of photos to use, so 75 million premium photos, videos, or elements, 3,000 fonts, 420,000 premium templates. And then you get this background remover. So if you've got an image where the background image is a bit noisy, you can actually remove all of that background image and it will keep the front part of the image in place. Very clever way of cleaning up what are sometimes very kind of noisy photos. £8.99 a month if you were to pay for it for a year up front, or it's about, I think it's something like £9.99 a month if you pay for it monthly. If you pay for it monthly, you can then cancel it at any point that you decide that you're not going to use it. Hopefully, if you're paying for it, then you're going to use it a lot. Remix by Buffer. This allows you to take any link on your website or any tweet that you have created on Twitter and change that link or that tweet into a beautiful piece of Instagram content. So it's only for Instagram, but it's just a really quick and easy way of creating content that can be put onto Instagram from a link or from a tweet. So that is image creation. So that is kind of images. Next up, we've got video creation, a little bit more complicated with video. And if we want to make our life easier with videos, one of the ways to do that is to choose templates that have already been designed. So there are a lot of people now that will have what looks to be really good videos, and actually, I must keep tapping something, and actually those videos are templates, and all they've done is just change the wording that comes across onto the page to be able to then tell a story. So it has the ability to be able to upload your own videos, but it also has the ability to have preset templates that you can then customize to make them your own. Wave.video pretty much does the same thing. They've got over 200 million stock videos, images, and audio clips for you to be able to use. So again, you can pull different audio clips into your video to be able to tell the story that you're trying to tell. Biteable does pretty much the same thing. It's free to use. This is more about short form video. So these two are more about longer form videos. Biteable is about very short, quick, kind of impactful videos, again, that you can then transform into your own. InShot is just purely for Instagram. It's an Instagram video editor. So Instagram, when you're uploading a video to Instagram, the editing features are pretty good, but they're not perfect. InShot allows you a lot more editing ability, and it makes it easier for you to be able to edit those videos on the fly at that point. And then Cut Story, which is only available on an Apple device. This one is for your Instagram videos. This one is for your Instagram stories. So one of the frustrations people have with Instagram stories is that it's very difficult to edit in the app. So what people tend to do is they end up uploading an edited video to their phone and then uploading from their phone into their story with it already pre-edited. This takes the pain out of that editing by giving you the ability to be able to edit it within your phone before it goes onto the story itself. So, but unfortunately still only available on Apple devices at the moment. If you are producing video, then one thing that everybody should do is they should produce closed captions, because there is a huge majority, I think it's 70% of video content that is watched online is watched without sound. So if we've got a video that doesn't make any sense, if there isn't a talking voice over the top of that video, then we want to use closed captions to be able to let people still enjoy the video, but without the sound of the video playing. The other side is accessibility. There are lots of people that will watch videos that won't be able to hear, and therefore they get as much enjoyment from the video if you then have the explainer of what's going on. So if they're just looking at a video and there's a voiceover and there's no closed captions, they're sat watching a video wondering what on earth is going on, when actually the story is the voiceover at that point. So closed quick CC is an automated caption generator. So you upload your video and then it comes back and tells you what it's found. You can then tweak that to make sure that's right. And then you can upload the file to Facebook or to YouTube or whichever channel you're putting that up on. And then mixed captions pretty much does the same thing. So mixed code has lots of different video bits, can't think of the word, lots of different video tools. In this particular instance, we're using mixed captions, which is about the third one along from the menu at the top. Again, this is available on both devices, as was the previous one. So some of this will be down to preference, some of this might be down to pricing. I think Quick CC is cheaper. I think that's why I put that in first, and then mixed captions is a little bit more detailed. Okay, so that's our content creation. So we've started off with content ideas. We've now got some places we can get photos and images and templates from. We've got places where we can get video clips and video templates and story clips and story templates. So hopefully we've now got all of that in place. And now what we want to do and must do really is content scheduling. So if you are trying to do social media without scheduling content, you will find it impossible to do. It just isn't possible to create consistently good quality content without scheduling. And if you went and hired somebody to do your social media for you, I guarantee you they will start to do content scheduling, because they will also know it is impossible to turn up every day and try and create good quality content. So what you want to do is spend lots of time creating good quality content and then put that into a schedule that will go out at a dedicated time and a dedicated date to a dedicated channel. So first up, we have Later. Later is the most popular scheduler for Instagram. So Instagram's a bit of a weird one in that on some of the others that we will show you, it won't work as well. Later works really well. It works within the platform itself. Some of the others, you get a notification through that says your post is about to go live on Instagram. Please say that you want it to go live, and you've almost got to authorize it to go live onto this one. Later doesn't work that way. It also works with other channels, so not only Instagram, it works with Facebook, it works with Twitter, it works with Pinterest. The more platforms you have added to these tools, the more cost it becomes. So most of them, not all of them, have got Wise too. If you end up with 5, 6, 7 different social platforms, you'll end up paying a reasonable, when I say a reasonable sum, we're talking maybe sort of 20 quid a month, but that's a reasonable sum to me when some of these used to be free. So have a think about what you might use and how you might schedule, but essentially you get to be able to choose what you're looking to put on. You've got a calendar saying when you want that to go on. You can put all your captions around this and everything else that you want to do on Instagram. Buffer, so we saw Pablo by Buffer, so that was just a separate tool by Buffer. So one of the things Buffer do is they produce lots of free tools for people to be able to use, but they also are a content scheduling platform. One of the things I like about Buffer is it's good at what it does. So it's fairly simple to use. There's not a great deal of complication over this one. Essentially, you are just going in and you are scheduling your content. And again, when I say scheduling content, please don't put the same content on Facebook and on Twitter and on Facebook and on somewhere else. A, at the same time, because that's a bit pointless, but B, the chances of a piece of content working on Facebook and working on Instagram and working on Twitter and working on LinkedIn and working on Pinterest is zero, because the people using those platforms are in a different frame of mind, and therefore you need to produce content for the platform in the style of that platform, and not just because it's easier to do because you can press a button and it can go out to 5 different channels. What's going to happen is one channel will like it, the other 4 channels are going to hate it, and therefore that's going to impact on your reach over time. So Buffer's fairly simple to use. Again, you can integrate whichever social channel you want to use on there. Content Cal is another one. Visually, people like this one because when you are in the essentially in the back end of the platform, everything's laid out in a calendar format. It's easy to see what's going out, which platform it's going out to. It's easy to drag and drop things into different places. So and it's easy from a collaboration tool as well to be able to allow team members to be able to use. Post Planner does all of the above. One thing that Post Planner Get My Teeth In does do, which I really like, is every day it shows you videos and content that is popular on social media right at that moment in time, or popular in places like Reddit and other bits and pieces. And what you're seeing a bit more now is channels using those videos and essentially publishing those videos on their channel, because they're automatically, or not automatically, they're almost automatically going to get more engagement, because they've already been social proofed, because somewhere else they're proving to be very popular. So it's really good for this to find good quality content up front that can then intersperse with your own content that you're producing as well. So really clever feature for Post Planner to do that. So all of those are about scheduling. So this is about scheduling, and that's it. So these are all of essentially one-way tools. So we're creating the content, and that content is firing out, and then we're going to have to go log in to all of those different platforms to see how that content performs. We're going to have to go see, are we getting likes, are we getting comments, are we getting shares, are we getting other bits and pieces. So these next ones, even though some people see these as scheduling tools, they're not. These are full-on social media management tools. So what that means is not only are they pushing content outwards, but they can also bring in results and content into their platforms. So first up, we have Hootsuite. Hootsuite was always and always has been one of the most popular ones. It's getting a little bit pricey for my mind, especially if you're using it across multiple channels. But what I loved about Hootsuite is I could have, if you used it really well, the Hootsuite do something called Hootsuite University. To be honest, it takes about half a day to do. It's definitely worthwhile doing because you realize how powerful Hootsuite is. But one of the things that you can have is on your dashboard, I could have a tab that said customer service. And in that tab, I could have any mention of my business on Twitter, which we talked about when we were talking about Twitter. So that is a Twitter search for my business that has a column that would update in real time should somebody mention my business. I could then have, under the same tab, all the direct messages being sent to me via Twitter. I could have direct messages being sent to me via Facebook. I could have direct message being sent to me via Instagram. I could have comments being made on my posts. And that gives me a platform to be able to engage at a customer service level with interactions my content might be getting. So without that, I would have to go onto the platforms. I'd have to log into Messenger. I'd have to go do the search on Twitter. This is doing that and actually bringing it back into the platform. So suddenly you're only having to log into one place in order to manage your entire social media catalog at that point. and that's why you have to pay for it, because obviously that's going to be quite a hefty chunk of software to be able to do that. Agorapulse pretty much do the same thing. Again, I think with Agorapulse, you've got a couple off the top of my head, and I've not checked the pricing for a while. I think you can use 1 or 2 platforms and it's relatively cheap, and then when you add the 3rd and 4th ones in, it starts to become a little bit more expensive. But again, similar thing, you're getting content coming back into the platform rather than just pushing that content out. The other thing that these have, I forgot to mention for Hootsuite as well, is they will also give you data. So they will give you data on performance. They will tell you what's working, what's not working, who's engaging, who's not engaging. Some of these platforms tell you who are your most engaged followers. Why would you want to know that? Because you probably want to try and build better relationships with those people. If they are helping to amplify your content, then you probably want to try and kind of build better relationships with those people. Now, eClincher I've put in because we were looking, we work with a fairly decent sized business, and they have about 21 branches that all have their own individual Facebook pages. They only have 1 Twitter account for the whole company, but it was the Facebook page issue that we had the most problem with. And everywhere that we looked, a Facebook page, even though it's just Facebook, a Facebook page was 1 seat within those different channels. And it was proving, I think Hootsuite was going to cost us 150 quid a month to be able to use for this particular business. We went to eClincher, and off the top of my head, it was about 30 quid a month to be able to use all of those. So at the moment, this is probably the cheapest of the platforms if you've got multiple channels to be able to use. They also include TikTok, whereas some of the others don't include TikTok. So this is an easier one to do this one. This one also works with Google My Business. So Google My Business is the Google map listing, so not quite part of this course, but very important for your businesses to maintain. So this does a really, really good job. And it's priced well, to be honest, compared to some of the others at the moment. So definitely worth a look at. And then the final one, oh no, there's 2 more. The second to final one, Sprout Social, very popular but very pricey. Probably the most important part of this one is the analytics that this produces are unbelievably good, and they're unbelievably visual as well. So again, easy for you to be, if you're reporting up the chain, then easy for you to be able to report on success. And then finally, Falconio is the last one. Again, very, very good, powerful platform, but I think it comes at a fairly decent price as well. So just be conscious of that. And my last website for today is this one. And the website, even though it isn't listed on there, I thought it was listed somewhere, is called producthunt.com. And this is essentially where any product that is new to the market that does something will often list themselves on Product Hunt. And on Product Hunt, what happens is the community upvotes these apps based on how useful they've found them. So as an example, we've got one there called Vegan Zone, and that is by vegans, for vegans and vegetarians. I have no idea what it is. I'm assuming it's something to do with maybe vegan recipes and vegan food. It could be about finding vegan content. No idea. But the idea is I could go into here, I could put in Facebook, and it would tell me the latest things that have been developed either by Facebook themselves or for use with Facebook. I could put Instagram in and do the same thing. So you start to find the most popular social media tools or the most popular apps that are out there that might help you solve something at that point. So this, I came across this a few years ago now, and although more people now know about it, it still feels a fairly secret thing. And I think it's amazing for discovering, if you've got a problem that you're having, that's maybe it's not even social media related. Let's say you've got a computer problem or an accounting problem or something like that. You can go to Product Hunt, do a search, and just see what's there that might be able to solve the issue that you're having at that moment in time. So definitely worth knowing about. So it's called producthunt.com. And certainly worthwhile going in. Doesn't cost you anything to use. You can have an account to log in. The only reason you'd log in is it just gives you the ability to be able to vote on some of the stuff that you might be using at that point. But brilliant, brilliant website. Right, that is me done. I am amazingly in time, which has shocked me, but that's quite good. Has anybody got any questions they want to ask before we bring up our, have we got a poll today to do?
We have.
Yeah.
While
So anybody, yeah, go on.
While we're thinking of the questions, I'll launch the poll. If you can just complete the poll, it's just to give us an overview of how well things have gone and whether we're hitting target.
Cool. So the poll will come up, and if you can fill that in, if you've got any questions, either feel free to either unmute yourself or go into the chat box and type your question out. I'll wait for the poll to be completed. If you haven't got any questions, then feel free to fill out the poll, and then you can leave this presentation. I wish you all the success in 2022. Hopefully we may have something that resembles a slightly normal year if everything kind of keeps going in this right direction. So fingers crossed for that one for all of us.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
Thank you everybody for your attendance. I will share it with those that Gail had to drop out, so I will share it with her. And any questions, please keep them coming.